Get ready with me to talk about our first week with our new foster placement. We're going to a concert tonight that we actually had planned before we got this foster placement, and we are still going to make it work. My mom is coming over tonight and she's going to put the kids to bed, and then we'll come back tonight. Obviously, we have had our placement for exactly 1 week today. We got her last Friday. She is so cute. She is a newborn, and honestly, she's a really good baby. I always feel like I'm bragging when people ask like, oh, how's she sleeping and stuff like that. I'm like, honestly, really well. Not that I had anything to do with the way that she sleeps or anything like that. Like, she came this way to us. Like, pretty much every night so far, she's only woken up like twice. We do a dream feed at about 8:30, I think, and she wakes up like twice. Last night, we did a dream feed actually kind of earlier, like at 8, and she woke up at, I think, 2, and Garrett got up with her, and then she woke up again at about 5, and I did that one, and then I was like up for the day at that point. So like, I really cannot complain about sleep. I can't really talk about her case in any way, but I can talk about my experience as a foster parent during this week. This is our first newborn foster placement. We've had a toddler previously. We got the call on Friday of like, hey, we've got this little one, like, are you interested? And we kind of took like a few hours to think it over, and we asked some questions like, does she have any medical concerns that we need to know about? Like, is she on any medications? Are we her first placement? There's not a ton of questions that I feel like I can ask when they're newborns, because it's like you just don't know a lot at that point, other than like medical history. So it's like mostly around that, because I have a toddler, and so I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. So I think we talked it over, and then by a little before noon, we had decided we would take her, and we let the social worker know, and then I think she came to us by about 3 o'clock that day, and literally like that whole day she just like slept. I think like that whole coming to us is probably so exhausting for a newborn, and so she like just slept like the whole day, and I was so worried of like, oh my gosh, this kid is like not gonna sleep at night because like she's sleeping all day. But honestly, that's just like the way she is. And like, I always feel like, I feel like I'm bragging by saying that like this newborn just sleeps all day, but like she does. And I like asked the doctor, I was like, this is okay, right? Like, she's not sleeping too much. And he's like, yeah, she's good. I was like, okay. At this point, I do feel like my husband and I have come to a routine of shifts that works for us. He is more of a night owl, so he takes that first wake up that is sometimes like around midnight to 2, and lets me sleep through that, and then I take the early morning one that is like around 3 to 5-ish. And this morning she didn't wake up until 5, so at that point, because it sometimes just takes so long to like get them back down and stuff like that, I just was like, I'm just gonna get up for the day. I was pretty tired, but it was actually kind of nice to then like actually do my morning routine this morning. Whereas like in previous mornings, I've just been like sleeping in until my toddler wakes up, just because I've been so tired from newborn wake ups. But now that my husband and I have this shift schedule, I am feeling like a million times better. It's working for us a lot better. On the days my husband works, I really don't even mind doing all of them. But he kind of like insisted that he would do one of them, even on the nights where he's working and going into the office, because it's just a lot for one person to handle. Not that 2 wake-ups is like a lot, it's just that she takes quite a long time to feed and stuff like that. I don't even really remember what kind of schedule we followed with my son. I think I maybe like kind of tried to follow like the taking care of babies, her schedules for newborns, but I just remember reading them when my son was a newborn and it being like, okay, they're gonna nap for 2 hours, and then my son would nap for like 30 minutes, and I'd be like, well, now what do I do? Like, I never really quite understood that. My son was like not really a great napper, and he woke up a lot during the night, really until he was like a year old, was when I think he finally fully slept 12 hours through the night. This is like very different because she's really only waking up twice in the night, and she's taking really good naps. Like right now she's taking a nap. She just like naps in her crib for 2 hours plus stretches, and I'm like, are you good? Like, are we sure this is okay? But I've done quite a few carrier naps as well. That was some of the best advice that I got from like second time moms, is that like you just have to put them in a carrier so that you can still do stuff, and like just let them learn how to take like on the go naps and stuff like that. So we've been doing that a lot too, especially for that like kind of late afternoon window. Sorry, I feel like I'm all over the place. I've been kind of following like the moms on call schedule. We started doing that the past like 3 days, and that's been working pretty well. Past week, I feel like more often than not, I often do like a carrier nap for that 4 to 5:30 window, because like my son likes to go outside around that time and go play with his friends, and so I'll put her in the carrier and then we can all go outside and she just sleeps in the carrier and my son can go play and stuff like that. One of the most common questions that I get from people is like, oh, do you know how long you're going to be having her for? And I'm always just going like, I don't know. You just never really know. Maybe you would have an idea of like, oh, okay, well, they're supposed to meet this goal in 6 months or whatever. You can maybe expect for reunification to happen then. But especially with younger kids and kids who are just entering the system, like you just never really know. There's also other factors. When a kid enters care, they are actively looking for family members, or what is called fictive kin, to take the child. So fictive kin is like someone who is like family. So it could be like a family friend, or even for older kids, like a teacher or a coach, a pastor, things like that. A neighbor is another example of fictive kin. So at least in my state, I live in North Carolina, if like a family member is identified who is in state, that turnaround to get them from the foster home to that family member can be pretty fast. However, things get very, very complicated when you are crossing over state lines. So that can throw a wrench in a lot of foster placements as well. It's called an ICPC when it's over state lines, and it takes a long time. It can take like a year. And I think on like a good day, it can take like 3 months. So if you're facing that, that can also affect how long you have a placement for, and so you just may not know. One thing I do want to say is I know that everyone is like, oh, I want newborns, I want 0 to 2. Babies are a lot. Babies are a lot of work, and there's a lot of things that have to be considered when you take them. If you're considering being a foster parent, you really need to take a hard look at your life circumstances and see, is this something realistically that can fit in with my life? I'm not saying that you have to be a stay-at-home mom or have a stay-at-home mom in your family unit, but it certainly makes it easier, because you have to remember that newborns can't go into daycare until they are like 6 weeks old, I think. So unless you have a very progressive work that allows you to take time off for a foster child, you're gonna have to have some kind of family support or something like that to watch the child, or you're going to have to pay out of pocket for like a nanny or something like that to watch the kid while you work. You also have to consider that newborns wake up a lot in the night, and if you are a single person, you're not able to divide out shifts and stuff like that. That could be a lot for one person to take on by themselves. Or even if you are in a couple, like, and you're both working full time, still handling newborn wake-ups can be a lot, especially if you are dealing with a kid who maybe is having like withdrawal symptoms or something like that. Like, that can be a lot, and it can really affect your sleep and it can affect your work. So just a lot of little things to consider like that. I know everyone thinks like, oh, babies, and they're so cute and easy, and that is not always the case, so just something to consider. What else can I tell you? Oh, all my friends always ask like, oh, how is your son adjusting to things? And the answer is pretty good. We actually were planning on taking the rest of the summer off I know it feels like the summer is pretty much over, but we were planning on taking the rest of the summer off and letting my son kind of adjust to preschool before we took on any more foster placements after our last one. I didn't want to bring another kid into the house and him feel like, oh, like I'm leaving preschool and there's like this other kid here, like, and I don't know, we just didn't want like too much change for him, like, and it be too overwhelming. But it's actually so funny. My toddler has been kind of notoriously afraid of babies for quite a long time. Like whenever he would see a baby, he'd just kind of be like, I'd be like, go say hi to the baby. And he'd be like, no. But in the past 6 months or so, he's really turned a corner. One of my really good friends, her baby, well, he's not really a baby anymore. He just turned 1. I think him seeing his little baby friend grow up and now he's like interacting with him and like crawling on the floor with him and having fun. Like he's a little less afraid of babies, because we were at a coffee shop the other day and he saw a baby and he was like, Mama, look at the baby. And he was like, oh, he thought it was so cute. And I was like, okay, we're doing okay. We're getting over our fear of babies. So whenever a social worker contacts us about a placement, like this was the case for the toddler that we took earlier this year, my husband and I talk about it, but we also bring it up to our son and let him be kind of like a player in the decision. We ask him, like, do you want like a boy or a girl come stay with us? Do you want someone your age, or do you want a baby? And in the past, he's kind of always said he wanted someone his age, which is why we had a toddler before. But this time around, we told him like, hey, there's a baby that needs to be in a safe home. What do you think? Do you want to have the baby come stay with us? And he was like, yes. He was so into it. And we were like, oh, okay. Like, we kind of actually thought we were going to say no, but then he was like, so like, we need to take the baby. We were like, okay, take the baby, we'll do it. Me and my son were out when we got the text from the social worker about like, hey, do you want to take this placement? And we were at a coffee shop, and every baby he saw after I mentioned that was like, he was like, is that the baby that's going to come stay with us? Is that the baby that's going to come stay with us? And I was like, no. And actually stop saying that out loud, because people are going to think we're going to like take their baby or something like that. So he's been adjusting really well. She's so small that we just kind of keep her in footy pajamas all day long just to keep her warm. And so he hadn't even seen her feet. So there was like one day we were like, oh, there's like a market in a nearby town. Like, let's go put her in the carrier and like we'll walk around and stuff like that with Theo and them. And so I put her in not footy pajamas, like a warm weather outfit, because it was hot outside and I didn't want her to be too hot. That was like one of the first times Theo saw her feet. He went, oh, she has feet, Mama. I was like, yeah, she does have feet. You're right. But he's been very sweet and helpful, especially the first few days. My son just turned 3. And so around day 3 or 4, I did start to notice he was seeming a little jealous of the baby. Mostly about like, hey, I want to be carried too. Or there was one day where he was just, I could just tell he was upset about something, but I couldn't really figure out what was wrong. He like couldn't really tell me. And when I finally was able to pull it out of him, basically what it always boiled down to was like, hey, I always have to wait for the baby, but the baby never has to wait for me, which was actually like super fair. And I told him that, of like, yeah, you're right. When I'm feeding the baby and you need something, I always tell you to wait until I'm done feeding the baby. But there can be times where the baby can wait for you. I can stop feeding the baby for a minute and help you with your thing, and then I'll go back to feeding the baby. And that has helped a lot. And then just also just having like really intentional time with him. Since the baby is napping so much, that really helps. And also just like doing a lot of like carrier naps and stuff like that. So I still have like my hands free. I think we're doing like at least 2 naps in the crib a day, and those are like solid 2 hours. But then the other ones, like we might be doing like on the go or in a carrier or something like that. So I feel like that's helped me and my son have plenty of like quality time, just the 2 of us too. So yeah, I can't even really think of anything else to say. Yeah, I just feel like the first week is just all about adjusting to life with another person in your house. It gets like more long. You may have court and meetings with GAL, more meetings with social workers and stuff like that, where you may have to be more of an advocate and, you know, give details that may be pertinent to help them determine like what is in the best well-being of the kid. But really just the first week is just like loving on the kid and making them feel at home and comfortable and making sure all their like basic needs are met, you know? I'm certainly not a foster care expert. This is only our second placement, but I think if you are someone who is considering being a foster placement, sometimes it can be helpful hearing from new foster parents just what their experience is, because if you're interested in becoming one, you're going to be a new foster parent. So kind of sometimes helps to hear what new foster parents are going through. Super seasoned ones also always have incredible advice, but it can be relatable perhaps hearing from newer foster parents, if that makes sense. If you guys have any questions about my husband and I's experience as new foster parents, or what it's like having your own biological child and introducing them to a foster child, just let me know. I'm happy to give our experiences. Obviously we're not experts, but sometimes I feel like it can be helpful to hear from new foster parents because we're all just like learning and growing. If you guys watched this far, thanks for watching. Hope you'll give it a like. I hope you'll subscribe and stick around, and it was fun chatting with you guys. Bye.